way of a very I forgot to mention this. This meeting is also recorded because we want to make the session available on the OCASI YouTube channel for subsequent viewing in case people could not join us today, but still want the information. Thank you, Adele, for reminding me. So by way of just a brief kind of bird's eye view, high-level introduction of the OCASI board structure. On the OCASI board, we have 8 regional directors, we have 8 provincial directors, we have 1 women's director, and we have 1 francophone director. And for this upcoming election at our AGM on October the 9th, we are looking to fill 4 regional director positions, 4 provincial director positions, and 1 francophone director position. People have often asked, when we approach them to consider joining the OCASI board, one of the first questions we get asked is, how many meetings are we expected to attend a year? So typically there are 4 to 5 board meetings per year, and typically when a board meeting happens, it's a 2-day or meeting, usually on a Thursday and a Friday, and ever since COVID, most of our meetings have gone to being held online, and we still maintain 1 in-person meeting every year. Every OCASI board member is also expected to join 2 board committees, and these cover different areas of activities such as finance, membership services, governance, policy and research, and so on. And the exact dates of the committee meetings, of course, are to be scheduled, but typically what we try to do is arrange the cadence so they more or less synchronize with the cadence of our board meetings. So typically I find that for my calendar, when we come up to the week of OCASI board meetings, usually right around that week or maybe the week before, there's also a couple of committee meetings to attend. And so that's to give you kind of a structure and a sense of the mechanics of the OCASI board. And of course, later on in our meeting today, there will be opportunities for you to ask any specific questions that you may have. And, we have our fellow board members here. We have some of our OCASI wonderful staff to be able to take those questions. But I want to introduce to you some of my colleagues on the board today. We have my fellow board members, Bonaventura Oshudi, Tracy Callahan, and also Jennifer Hollis, who very recently stepped off the board due to a change in her work. And we're delighted that they could join us today. So I was just going to ask the 3 of them to introduce themselves, their work in their organizations, their role on the board, some of their experiences, and so on. So Tracy, can I start with you?
Good morning. I'm Tracy Callahan. I'm the Executive Director of Adult Language and Learning, and we're located in Chatham, Kent. So we're considered a small center when we started, but we're slowly growing. So I'm not sure if that definition still holds true. And I'm also a vice chair on the OCASI board. Alfred, I'm not sure how far you want us to go with this, but I'm in my 6th year of being a board member. So the terms are 2-year terms that we can get reelected and do 6 consecutive years. So I'm in my 6th year. So one of those vacant seats is mine, unfortunately. But we'll get more into the value of the board later. But this is my 2nd round of 6 years. So in the 22 years serving immigrant funded agency, I've had 12 years on the board with OCASI. Welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. Bonaventure, please.
Thank you, Alfred. My name is Bonaventure Chudi. I'm the Director of Newcomer Services at the Centre de Santé Communautaire Hamilton-Niagara. We cover the Hamilton and Niagara region. So it's a huge region, including the municipality of Welland, St. Catherine, Fort-Erie, Port Colborne, and Grimsby. So I'm also the OCASI Francophone Director. I'm on the board since I'm done with my 2nd term, and but I'm on the board OCASI since the first time I come on the board OCASI. It was in 2013. I ran for my 3 terms, and I take off and I come back again 2 years ago. So it's a pleasure for me to be here today.
Thanks, Bonaventure. I think there could be no higher, positive thing that we can say about OCASI Board when you see people, like Bonaventure and Tracy, who served out a term and then they decide to come back. So I think that speaks volumes to the experience. Jen, over to you.
Yes, and thank you for those that were able to join us and those that'll be watching the recording. I'm Jennifer Hollis, the former Executive Director of Will Employment Solutions. And I guess I bring the newbie or newer perspective. So I just had completed my first 2-year term with the OCASI Board for Western Region. And if I could, and I was in a different role, I certainly would be running again. It was a tremendous value add. So we'll speak to that later, but it's been a great privilege to serve over the last 2 years. So I'm the outgoing Western Region Director.
Thanks, Jen. Now, to add the human elements to our conversation today, I thought it would be a good idea to hear, from our colleagues, some of their experiences, serving on the board. You've just heard that, like someone like Tracy, who's spent 12 years, like over a 2 6-year term on the board. So, like, she comes with a mass amount of experiences, and we have someone like Jen who joined the board more recently, and so the perspective may be a little fresher, a little different. But one question that I would love to hear our colleagues sort of address is that typically people who join the OCASI board occupy senior level leadership within their agencies. Now, by the way, you do not need to be an ED or CEO of your agency to run, right? All that is required as far as eligibility is that you are affiliated or you're associated with a member's agency. Either you can be a director, you can be a senior staff, but you do not need to be the ED or the CEO of the organization, which is a common misconception that people have. But nevertheless, people who sits on OCASI board typically are senior level leaders. And so what I'd love to hear, Tracy and Bonaventure and Jen share a little bit is, with your obviously significant amount of responsibilities within your organization, how do you balance that time-wise and just sort of managing that balance between that and serving on the board? And so I'd love to hear your experiences with that. Jen, can you go first? Let's hear some of what you've been through.
Sure, absolutely. So I would say I've never had a light load. So the OCASI board, though, it's something that you look forward to as complementing that. And it really advances the strategic priorities. I would imagine no matter what your organization's strategic priorities and work are in terms of that effort, particularly from the Western region perspective or even a regional perspective. Sometimes, despite our best intentional efforts, we don't have the same access or exposure for collective advocacy efforts with ministers or government or directors. So it really gives an opportunity to bring those concerns from a wider region and really bring that advocacy forward, not for your individual organization, but something that will benefit all organizations across the province. So I found during my time on the board, even in my first 2 years on the board, there were things that we were able to jointly advocate on that ended up not only being an asset to some of the issues that were pain points for our individual organization, but really benefited the sector as a whole. So that I would say it's time well invested.
Bonaventure, what about you?
Yeah, I can just add, as Jennifer said, it's that job. I can say we are all volunteering. We are doing, and it's a volunteer job, first of all. And I can say I have the passion for immigration. So each time we came to the board meetings, very, very successful, very, very learning with the group we have. As Alfred says, you don't have to be ED or CEO to be a board member. I remember sometime in my organization, I've been here in Francophone Center 23 years now. I was settlement worker, management position. Sometime I was ED, the executive director. When our ED was retired, they called me to assume that role for 10 weeks. And I'm doing settlement services director, I think now for 23 years. It's very, very important. We can balance our life and work. It's those meetings is a high level. We have the opportunity to contribute to strategic plan, OCASI strategic plan, to see the wide situation in immigration in country. We can push our priorities. Each region is different. I'm covering the South region. Our issues is different than the West region, different than the North. So we have the opportunity to come up with the issues from regional to address the OCASI in the widely. Those issues, regional issues, we can address it. I think those meetings, we can balance our work and also what we're doing with the community. And I'm covered the Francophone agencies. That means each member agency who services and program are principally offered and provide in French. I see here one French speaking partner, Jefty from CSO Ottawa. She's here with us today. So we cover all Francophone agencies in the province. We are 23 now, and we push our agenda, how to design the Francophone better, how we can collaborate with English agencies. It's very helpful. I can see if I'm not around the table, who can bring the Francophone issues. So for us as provincial director, it's very important to be around the table to discuss the Francophone issues. I'm the person who is appointed by the Francophone agencies to bring those issues around the table at OCASI. So we can balance our work and our contribution at OCASI Board, was how I'm doing it with several years now.
Thank you, Bonaventure. And Tracy.
Yeah, so when I first started on the board and I was told the schedule and how many days would be involved, I'll be honest, I had a bit of a, how am I going to fit that in my schedule? And like Jen and Bonaventure both have said, that the benefit outweighed the time commitment. And so I found that, once I made the time and we're scheduled plenty of time in advance, so we can manipulate our schedule so that we can squeeze this portion into our schedule. But I found the more I got involved, the more I wanted to be on additional projects. So the original investment of time sometimes turned out into more. And I guess the benefit truly outweighed the board piece. And I'll give you a couple examples. I ended up being on the small center conference committee, coast to coast, and then dedicating different time to that. And I also had the opportunity to be a small center seat on the National Settlement Council. So there's an NSIC that we can talk more about later, but there was additional things that we could dig into and focus in. But the board meeting itself, when we're in it, the benefit I had, you're leaving your office and you're trying to balance all of these things. I found that I had a better chance to deeper dive in some of the issues that we deal with on a daily basis, and talking with the colleagues at the board table and sharing some of those experiences. And I'm sure we're going to go into some of the benefits of the board in the rest of this call today. But the challenge at first was how many meetings, how many hours, but it didn't turn out to be that difficult. And then digging into more committees and different things that spun off from this. And then I think, Alfred, the one thing that I had to really work on was the number of emails, because there's sector emails, there's committee emails, there's board emails. And so I had to kind of organize myself and make sure I wasn't missing something, because every one of them was important. There wasn't any that I could kind of fluff off and wait and connect with them later. So time management is important, but the benefits truly outweigh. And one final comment there, I was sick for one of the board meetings and I missed, and I felt bad because I missed out on, and I know that's kind of a laughing out loud moment, but I mean, I felt bad that I missed out on the material and wasn't able to contribute to that meeting, because you're so engaged and so involved once you're in this. Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Tracy. And I think what you said leads beautifully into what I wanted to hear from you next is, as you look back on your experience serving on the board, and we'll let you carry on, Tracy. What are some of the things, and I'll leave it up to you to decide how many things you want to mention, but what are some of the things that you find like to be, the most rewarding about serving on the board? I think it'll be great for us to hear.
Yeah, when I started, I was very new in my job, and I didn't know what OCASI was. I didn't know what LINC meant. I got hired on, and and here I am running an organization 22 years later with a lot of growth. But when I started on the board as a new organization, I think the biggest thing was I gained a lot of confidence. When I was unsure about some of these things that we deal with on a daily basis, funders, political issues, things that are changing in the world, strategic planning, all of those kind of things. So confidence would be kind of the first thing that I jotted down. Being on the board, I gained valuable contacts and connections. And it's not just about ministry, it's about the folks on the board. So, as a smaller center, and I'm going to use smaller center as my reference in this today, I was able to connect with other small centers and executive directors that I may not have necessarily met up with them at a conference or connected with them prior to that. So now I can call Alfred, I could call Jen, I could call Madeline in Kingston, I can call Kathy in Thunder Bay. There's that piece that makes us more connected. And when we're dealing with challenges in our own organizations, we're able to connect with others. It kept me engaged in sector issues. So sometimes we are all very busy with multiple priorities, but by bringing the OCASI board meeting every quarter, it made you maybe dig into some of those things or focus in on some of the things that are really important. And one of the things, Alfred, that was really beneficial in the last year or two for me and the board was there were some difficult situations we've had to deal with unrest across the ocean and different LGBTQ and some of the things that have brought to the forefront. And we were able to have good discussions at the board in a safer space to kind of talk through how to handle these situations with our staff, with the sector. So not only did we address some of it as an OCASI board, but we were able to take that stuff home and use it in our organizations. And OCASI was able to help us draft statements, in a response to some of those where we might be reluctant as a small center or a larger agency, even unsure of like the right verbiage to use or how to address those issues publicly. Because press does contact you, and we want to be on the same page and doing this correctly. It helped me with governance with my own board of directors, learning the governance model with OCASI. It helped me be stronger as an organization myself and make me more effective. Understanding policy. I never knew I was a policy person. I'm an operational kind of person, and it opened up a whole new world for me. And if Deb Douglas was on the call today, she'd laugh because I was not a policy person when I came in. And then I was able to be part of a group of people to help make change and have a voice. And an example would be the ESL open for call for proposal. It took a group of us to kind of change that direction and bring that opportunity of funding to others more than just, one dedicated area. And I've got two more here, Alfred.
Yes.
Helping me have a stronger voice, right? And I did not have that at the beginning of my career. And it's made me a better leader being part of this team. So I strongly encourage anyone to consider it. And even if after this call, Alfred, if they were thinking, oh, I'm not sure, that we're a phone call away or an email away, if they wanted to talk to us individually, even after the recording's out there, mentoring other potential board members. Hopefully I didn't ramble off too long. I've got lots more, but that was the gist of it.
Thanks, Trace. Jen, what about you? What have you found most rewarding?
So I have a list too, but I'll, I'll try to piece this thing. I would echo everything that Tracy shared and add to it. I mean, it's not often I'll claim, I'm not a fan of meetings all the time, right? And so it's very seldom in my life that the meeting, you get your little meeting reminder and you say usually like, oh, here I go again. But when you get the OCASI meeting reminders, it gives life to you, it brings energy to you, and when you're in the meetings, you're really feeding off one another's energy. It brings hope and it brings optimism during very complex times in the sector. Speaking in terms of some of the joint advocacy that we were able to advance as a group as well, even on the employment realm during this complex employment transformation that's covering the whole province. One of the areas, flagging issues in terms of potentially the disparate impact on newcomers with the common assessment tool. We were also able to do some joint advocacy when they changed bridge training rules and said that there were no longer concurrent service plans. By, again, having the power of that collective voice, we were able to get the ministry to consider changing that. And that was actually executed in terms of a change, which ultimately opens up bridging access to more newcomers across the province again. I would say the wider lens. So I've done immigrant work for 25 years, but within Will at the time, it more employment focused. So I loved being able to zoom out at the OCASI board, hearing kind of from agencies that cover all different areas. What were those common synergies, common opportunities, common advocacy points that we could work on together? And an opportunity to learn. I mean, there was no, whether it was a subcommittee meeting or an informal get together or a phone call or a formalized board meeting, there's no time that I invested in OCASI that I didn't come away from that meeting having learned something that builds my own professional capacity as well as supports the organizations and the networks with which we work.
Thanks, Jen. Bonaventure.
I can say it's such a privilege to be part of board members. I see all positive. Having the couple since 2013, each year is different. We get around the table a different person, a different expertise. It's very, very, very helpful. The networking is incredible. It's also the learning opportunities. We choose priorities. I'm the voice of the Francophone member around the table. And one thing I thought it was sometimes difficult when it came around the event in the world, like Palestinian issues, the war in Ukraine, the African countries, some those, how to take position when that happened. We had a discussion around the table, how to prepare a memo, how to prepare how they call the AMI have to prepare the OCASI voice to be here, and we consult all board members to give the input. It's not easy. Like what happened in Palestine and Israel now, we have different level explanation about that position. So we take position as member agencies or as OCASI board. It's not easy for that. That part, I saw that part each year, it's not easy, but sometimes when we come at the board to front the government, to go together with Debbie, with the leadership we have on the table, it's very successful because we come as a group, we are talking about all agencies across the province. We come as one voice. It's very, very powerful. I can say that, such a privilege to be there and to contribute for the immigration process to advance our community.
Thank you, Bonaventure. I echo everything that my colleagues have outlined. I think one thing that Tracy said that I really sort of resonated with, and that is serving on the OCASI board. I find that it expands me as a person, right? Both personally and professionally. One thing that I really appreciate and I really learn a lot from, even just being part of the meetings is there is such a high level of respect among board members. Now, we come from all different, areas of services, and sometimes, we have different viewpoints on specific issues. but of all the meetings I've attended with OCASI, of all the spirited conversations we've had and passionate discussions, and there was never a moment where respect was lacking. It was always professional. It was respectful and genuine, and I think it also, I find that it manifests itself when we, for instance, invite government officials and funders to join us, right? Like they know that this is not a space where they have to be afraid of being embarrassed or being attacked, right? Obviously, there are points of conversations where we diverge, right? But they know that we didn't invite them to come in and just get slammed, right? And get embarrassed. And so I find that even when we invite politicians or bureaucrats to join us, there is that sense of a shared safe space, right? So they could be honest, and they could be open, and vice versa. So, and for me, just being a part of that and learning and experiencing that in an environment where I'm constantly learning from the other board members, for me, it's been just so rewarding, and just educational at the same time for me. Bonaventure mentioned something about we have almost 250 member agency as OCASI, right? Like, so pick an issue, any issue, and there could be 250 different views, right? And so for us as a board to learn to bring those views together to form that one voice that Bonaventure talked about, it's a real exercise of how do we build unity? How do we build that sense of togetherness, right? Any press release we put out, we go through rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of edits and input to be sure that while we may not satisfy everyone, we, at the end of the day, always include everybody's voice, right? So, so it's a space where we learn together, where we're respectful with each other, and most importantly, we learned what it means to speak with one voice on issues that really are becoming more and more critical for us as a country, right? So, and I look at the work of OCASI, it's no longer just about getting more funding for this program or that service, but it's really coming to a view on immigration that is consistent with what we stand for as a nation. Right, and I think that's a tremendously important conversation and dialogue that we need to have. Now, part of this morning is also we wanted to hear from you who are interested in joining the board and any questions that you may have. So, Adele, if it's okay with you, I'd like to open this up to attendees and see what questions they may have for us or for staff. Is that okay, Adele?
Yes, whatever you recommend.
Okay, so please feel free if you have a question, put up your hand, and we would love to. We'll do our best to address any of your questions or concerns. Yes, Jeffy.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'll keep my camera off since I'm off today, but didn't want to miss the opportunity, didn't know it was going to be recorded. So yeah, so thank you all for sharing your experience, very much appreciated. And I really like the approach that OCASI took, give an opportunity for people to really learn more about the role, and was not expecting to hear from actual board members. So that's really great to hear. So my only question is around onboarding. I really like that Tracy and Bonaventure shared that, when they started, they were not necessarily the most experienced person around the table. I just want to know what kind of support is offered at the onboarding phase, just to get a sense of what kind of support someone who's brand new coming and may not have all of the experience to operate at that level yet can expect to receive. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffy. I'm going to turn to Tracy, our veteran, to talk about the onboarding since she's done it enough times, trust me.
Well, and we have Martha online
Yes.
to help support me in that. As at the very beginning, I'll be honest, the very first meeting I went to, I had no idea what some of the comments were or who the people were they were talking about. So I made copious notes and went back to my hotel room to find out, you know, like these are Toronto City Councillor names and they're not government and different things like that. So, you know, it was a bit of a learning curve as a smaller center coming into the bigger scope of things. But the onboarding was excellent. And so the OCASI staff comes in, they go through their policies and procedures, they go through all of their bylaws. We all select different committees we'll be on. And then when you get on those committees, there's also orientation of what that committee, when you elect to go into those committees, you know what you're going into. But then when we get into the actual committee, we review it again and understand what our responsibilities are, and then vote a chair and do all those kind of things within there. The other part too that we developed throughout being a board member is making sure that we have mentors.
Yes.
So we ensure that if you're a newbie on the board, then you know you have contacts with us, with the board outside of the board meetings as well, to help answer questions and help you through that. And one of the very positive things I've enjoyed too with the board we've added at the end of each board meeting is talking about what they got out of the meeting and what we could have did better, and did anybody miss anything. And then we do a message to the sector so that we're sharing this information. We're not just keeping it all in a 2-day meeting. It's being shared out loud to all the members. So there's ample opportunity to be mentored and provide onboarding information. And then there's an excellent team of staff supporting behind that as well. I hope that answered your question.
I can just add also, Jepte, the listening is very important. When you come out the board, you can be intimidated, you know? When you see around 20 to 23 executive director, they know what they're doing. Since you are new, so as Tracy said, we ensure the mentorship program is there. You will sit with the old member, OCASI board member can help you go through the orientation process. The team doing very, very good. I think the transition is very easy. You will find someone you know already, because we are sitting at the OCASI conferences, ICC conferences. We know each other. So when you come to the board, you will be not isolated. You know, we find someone you connected in the past, and the transition we are there to help the new member to catch up and to get on the board ready to go. With the mentorship program, it's very, very, very good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you. Martha, is there anything you would like to add as far as the onboarding of board members specifically?
No, not really. I think you cover it all.
Thank you. Deb, please go ahead.
Hi, morning, everybody. And bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour.
So one of the things I've been doing at my organization is to ensure that we have the Francophone representation. So over the last 5 years, I've been working to build my organization to be recognized as a Francophone serving organization. And now we have the clients coming in. And so it's something I just wanted to mention because, of course, I know you're an advocate for the Francophone stream. I wanted to see the possibility of joining the board. And Tracy, by the way, your love of policy is amazing to have on a board because that allows some of the work to be passed your way. So what I remember that there was one ED, and she's from Newcomer Center of Peel, EFAT, had mentioned to me, Dave, this opportunity to join the OCASI board, it's a great opportunity to see the sector from a different light and stuff like that. And I had also spoken to another ED from PMC, what's his name? Mr. Chowdhury, I forgot his first name. And he also mentioned the same thing. So, and of course, I am a member of OCASI as well. So the concept is we've supported OCASI in its work and advocated with OCASI. I was looking at it from the question here is, what is the difference between a representation in the province and you have different representations. So you have West and stuff like that. And that's the piece I don't understand when it comes to what are the roles and what are the different pieces that you have there.
Sure. Thank you for that question. I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer first to speak from her experience, and I can also fill in with some of the mechanics of the differences between how they're elected and their scope of responsibility and so on. But Jen, you would like to speak to that?
For sure. So on the big picture of it, what I'll say is, because I had the same question too, kind of coming into it, and it was like you, I mean, to use colorful language, you think, oh, like, am I like a second tier on the board? My voice isn't as important as the provincial directors, but no, it's very, like Alfred was talking about, that inclusivity. We're all part of the board. It's one collective voice. So and you feel fully welcomed and integrated in that full respect. So it's the regional director is more of what are those particular nuances or different challenges or issues emerging within that broader region. So for Western region, we covered Chatham, Leamington, London, Sarnia, Windsor, Essex. And in addition to the board meetings, and this is, I don't have it totally memorized if it's 3 meetings a year or 4 meetings a year, but you do chair a regional meeting, and do not fear, because you're well supported by both Debbie as well as the OCASI staff and team in terms of co-creating that agenda. But it's an opportunity to really dive a little bit deeper with the shared membership in that region, flag some of those issues that are emerging, and then as the regional rep, there's a portion in the board's structured agenda of that 1.5 day where all the regional reps give voice to those particular concerns, opportunities, or shared advocacy points, so on and so forth. So it's that kind of structure to make sure that there's an intentional effort, I think, from OCASI's voice and OCASI's perspective, that when they talk about representing the province, how are they really proactively reaching out to bring those voices to the table? So you're really getting the best of both worlds. So I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. In echoing what Jen said, I think the rationale behind having regional directors versus provincial directors is simply a recognition of any issue related to newcomers and immigration manifest themselves very differently depending on the geographic location, right? So things that happen in Toronto may not happen in Chatham, and vice versa. And I think for OCASI to be effective, the work that we do, the dialogue we have, needs to reflect the reality of what's going on the front lines, right? And what agencies are feeling, what are the pressure points. And so that's the, first of all, the rationale behind having regional directors versus provincial directors, just to make sure that our work and our dialogue is relevant across the province. And as Jen mentioned, the two directorship are on equal footing with one another as far as the board structure. It's just a different scope of responsibility, if you will. Mechanically speaking, in terms of how these members of the board are elected, there's a slight nuance difference in that the regional directors are elected by member agencies within that region, right? And we do that to make sure that the person who represents the region on the board is someone who is intimately known by the stakeholders in that region, and someone that understands, what goes on in that region as far as the service provider landscape, as far as the issues that the frontline, workers face, and the pressure points, and so on. So while the regional directors are elected by member agencies of that region, provincial directors are elected by all member agencies of OCASI, and it all take place within the context of our AGM. Right, so there is that mechanical difference in terms of the procedures of how these positions are filled. As far as what Jen mentioned, right? Like there's no different tiers of membership on the board. Everyone's on equal footing, but everyone do have a slightly different scope of responsibility and focus. Tracy, Bonaventure, anyone else? Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I can add, Mr. Dev, the for the Francophone agencies, the Francophone group member agencies, you can be part of the Francophone committee. If you are the French-speaking agencies, which means if your internal governance in French, and also if the language you spoke at work is French, is that those options. So also the Francophone member agency will also be a regional group member agency. For example, if you are in Toronto, okay, you are in the GTA region as a regional member agencies, as Francophone agencies, you will be part also at the regional group member agencies at that region. So we are here to express all issues for the Francophone. It's come up, and I brought it to the OCASI member, to OCASI board to discuss as a group. Tracy?
I don't think, Alfred, I have much to add to the Western regional piece other than, today we're talking about the importance of being a board member and how we want to encourage others to join this team. But for those that are watching this later and thinking, I didn't join the board or I wasn't sure I should, I want to really encourage them to have a voice and make sure they go to those regional meetings. And now that a lot of this stuff is virtual, it gives you a better opportunity to kind of squeeze that in your schedule within a region because some people are traveling. It's really important to share those ideas or share those issues that are happening in their region and have that regional rep bring it forward to the board for that bigger discussion, because so much can happen with that. And if we don't hear from you, we don't get that opportunity to discuss those items and dig in further or advocate for the things that are needed.
Well said. Thank you. Are there other questions that we can talk about?
Dave, I can ask you, from agency are you coming for?
So I'm from Peel Career Assessment in Mississauga. We are in Peel region.
Okay.
And we do have a few organizations that serve French here.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, from an IRCC perspective, it's to promote the French. So I started about 5 years ago to start converting my websites and everything so that when a person comes in, they know that they can get the service in French. So now we have clients that are being referred by 211, my organization, and that tells me that something is working. Within April and July, we saw over 75 new French-speaking clients. Now, for a bigger agency, it may be a small amount, but for us, I see it as a big amount compared to years where we had 5 or 6. Now we're seeing traffic. So for me, it's progress.
That's good. Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Could I add a comment, Alfred? I'm just thinking, when I first started the board, I thought it was an IRCC focused conversation. And, it's not. The IRCC is one of our strongest funders, but I mean, it's all areas of immigration and all of the challenges that go along with it, whether it's provincial, federal, municipal, all those things. We have those conversations. So I just thought maybe I could highlight that. A lot of the times we think it's one thing and it's a whole lot more, and it's really important to know that inclusive piece of it and that we're focusing on all of those issues.
Great point. Great point.
Can I just add again to the onboarding piece and just again as a newer person to the board, and I will say that I tend to lean more on the introverted side of things. You're worried like, oh, this is all new people. How long have they been meeting, this and that? But it's a very welcoming, down to earth, inclusive. Like I instantly felt bonded and connected and part of the group. So again, there's no question that's a wrong question. So whether in addition to that formalized onboarding, everybody's always there to support one another for any of those informal chats on the side as well, and to really keep everybody connected.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Jen. Dave, back to you.
Yeah, I think, when Tracy started, she talked about the time that it takes to be part of it. And, I've been approached by the former ED of Dixie Blow way back when to be part of OCASI. But one of the things I liked, and Tracy, you just mentioned about not the national look of immigration. And I think that is the piece that interests me with OCASI. And I'm a strong member of OCASI. I've seen the advocation that you've done. So I'm looking at it from that lens, where can I lend my expertise in terms of the national view when it comes to immigration or immigrating to Canada? And what sort of impact I can play with that particular piece. So for me, that is the interest that I have. And I think, from listening to all of you, we serve a lot of clients now from parts of Africa. In Peel, we have a heavy clientele coming in from Africa with French speaking, and they're coming in as refugees and so forth. And I had 200 of them come in a couple of weeks ago, and we are able to serve in French and in English. And I see that as an important piece. So I'm looking at it from a different lens when it comes to OCASI. So I think if that is possible, then definitely it's something that I would be interested in contributing to.
And in all honesty, when I began the board as a very small agency, I never dreamt the little executive director from Chatham-Kent would be on a national committee. I never dreamt that was even a possibility, and it wasn't really even my focus area. It's just as you get involved in committees and issues or focus areas, it just kind of evolved, and then I ended up in some of these situations. So anything's possible, Dev. It just depends on where the focus area is and how that opportunity presents itself. I didn't think that was never in my big blueprint of plans, but it was very exciting and rewarding to be part of that process and to have a voice at some of those levels.
Thank you for sharing that.
Right, and as far as the infrastructure is concerned, OCASI is part of a national structure, the National Settlement Integration Council. So I sit on that council. Tracy has taken part in the, as part of that national scope structure. So quick answer to your question, Dave. There are actual definite possibilities where you can lend your voice on a national scale to talk about the issues, so that we're not just sort of Ontario focused, but we also get a glimpse of what are some of the issues that are happening across the country. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm mindful of the time, and so before we let you go, I just want to quickly highlight some important dates, just so that we have them on our calendar. So first of all, as we talk about the election of board members and so on, all that takes place at annual general meeting, and this year it is scheduled for October the 9th at 3 to 5 p.m. So that's an important date, and we encourage all the candidates to attend that meeting in person, where you'll be given an opportunity to give a brief introduction of yourself, and that's also when the actual voting will take place. So that's October the 9th, 3 to 5 p.m. As far as submitting nominations, there are a couple of important deadlines to notice as well. For regional directors, the submission deadline is August the 28th. So if you're interested in being a regional director, the deadline for submitting the nomination is August the 28th. For provincial director, as well as our Francophone director position, the submission deadline is September the 6th. So August 28th for regional directors, September 6th for provincial and Francophone director. And again, the actual election will take place at our AGM on October the 9th at 3 to 5 p.m. So I hope we had an opportunity to give a helpful overview of what life on the OCASI board is about. For those who will be watching this on YouTube, If you have questions that we didn't address during this past hour, please feel free to reach out. Our contacts is on the OCASI website. Reach out to staff, and we will do our level best to share our experiences personally and answer any technical or logistic questions that you may have. Adele, am I missing anything?
No, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I want to thank everyone for your time, and it's great having you all here today, and we look forward to seeing your name on the nomination for the board. Please take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Au revoir tout le monde.
Thank you all
Bye-bye.
for your time. Merci. Bye-bye.